Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, and I'm here to challenge everything you have been taught about aging and wellness. This podcast is for those who refuse to accept that growing old means growing unhealthy. Each week, I will bring you dynamic conversations with inspirational guests, sharing practical advice, insights, and motivation to live your life rebelliously as you age with grace and vitality. This is your time to embrace self-care, transformation, and an infectious spirit that says no to the conventional and yes to a vibrant, powerful life. Let's dive in and redefine what it means to live well. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. And today, your special treat is Jason Smith, who is, get this, a retired U.S. Air Force officer, sales executive, and now entrepreneur. So fascinating background, Jason. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here and to talk about so many things about sales and leadership. But before we dive into that, let's hear who is Jason. Give us 3 words, a little bit of a backstory to tell us who is Jason.
Atlanta native, born here in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a very rare treat. You need to take a picture because you won't find a lot of people from Atlanta in Atlanta. And an Air Force leader. That's been the heartbeat of what I do. And what a lot of people don't know, even though I don't have an engineering background, I've got an engineering mind. I had all kinds of engineering projects and international science fair stuff when I was a kid in high school. And I bring that approach to everything I do. So I bring that art and science combined and engineering solutions for people. That's the way I think and the way I bring value to a lot of my clients. So again, just that catalyst for change through engineering solutions. That's what I do.
All right. I like that. Catalyst for change. And let's talk about bringing solutions. So if somebody thinks like Air Force, leadership, sales executive, and now entrepreneurship, like what is the common theme there?
Oh, well, I actually had a passion for entrepreneurship even when I was in the Air Force. It's something that I thought I wanted to do. Found out that my family legacy and the things that my grandparents were able to do is because their parents own their own businesses, which was very common back then. My great-grandfather was born in the 18s, right? 1918, I believe, something like that. And it was very common for people to have their own businesses. And because of that, I had this desire to kind of do something on my own, but I was in the Air Force. That's not something I could pursue. So when I was medically discharged, that's something I wanted to do first off. And so before I actually went into the corporate world and started working, I spent some time trying to start a business and not really getting that off the ground. So it was always there. And having to stop what I was doing and say, all right, let me just go ahead and do what most people who want to start a business should do. Really take time to apprentice in an industry, go and learn the world and get some experience under your belt, especially coming right out of the military. You don't really know the outside world that well. I went into the corporate world and stumbled into sales. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Did process engineering with that engineering background I had. And when that didn't really work out, I found myself going into sales by default. And I just fell in love with it. I found out that real sales is not just talking products and convincing someone to buy something. Real sales is the art and science of leading people to make the best decision to solve their own problems through conversation. And to do that, you got to figure out what you need to know and present the facts of how you can help them in the right way. And if you're honorable, if you're good, if you're not the right fit, then you move on to someone else and just provide value to the people who need it. And I loved it. And that gave me a lot of success, changed my life, and I've been evangelizing sales ever since. When I was outsourced from the corporate world, I came back to my home and I wrote down on a piece of paper, do what you can with what you have right now. And at the bottom of that page, I had a business plan to go out and begin consulting small business leaders. And I've never looked back, hustling in this business ever since.
I love it. So let's talk about sales because Jason, we have had this conversation. What got me really onto my mindset journey and my mindset transformation was really sales because actually, opposed to what you said, I was thinking about that as you were speaking. You come from a family that was an entrepreneurial family. I come from Eastern Europe where private enterprise was actually forbidden. There was no such thing. It was only government-owned enterprise, and everybody had the same thing, and everybody was kind of like boxed in the same box, and that was it. So like entrepreneurship for me was something very different than what I was accustomed to. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing for me was sales, and it was selling myself. And I'm sure that's something, I'm just guessing, you're stumbling across that a lot, especially for small business owners. Like,
Yes.
yes. So let's talk about that. What do you think is the thing about sales? And tell me also you agree because you have done both. I think selling for a company is different than having your own business and sell yours. So let's kind of like talk a little bit about that. How do you think that's different? And what do you think makes sales so, I don't want to use the word challenging, but like so out there for entrepreneurs?
It's very different. It's very different. When you're selling for an established big corporate brand, there's a lot of structure. And depending on the size of the company, I worked for IBM, Pfizer, Red Hat, and those companies have an established brand that takes a lot of the work off of your plate for credibility and access and the type of response you get from customers when you show up as a representative of a larger brand. When you go out there as an entrepreneur, you're selling yourself. People have to know, like, and trust you. They're going to judge the messenger before they even consider the message. And you feel that in a very deep way. You probably felt that too when you were going out, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You feel much more vulnerable. Like everything about your life feels as if it's on display. You're much more exposed. And that causes a lot of people in the entrepreneurship game to pull back from the sales side, especially when they think about it as taking money from someone, right? I'm a good person. I don't want to go out and scheme people and just ask them to pay me, or they feel like they're somehow asking people to help them out because they feel the need for that money. They feel the neediness of trying to make this business succeed. So there's a hesitation to go to someone and offer their services because they know they're trying to get money to feed themselves. It's a very emotional journey. And small business entrepreneurship, if you're going on a sales journey as an entrepreneur, going at it with the traditional methods that are taught in sales about always be closing, hitting the phones and just getting to the scripts. It's a numbers game. It's very antithetical to the way a lot of people think. Like, I'm a real person. I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to ask people to pay me for what I want to give them. I want to help people. And that becomes a conflict. There's cognitive dissonance there to trying to go out and insert payment and money into this process of trying to help people with all the skills you've built, whatever processes or services you've created. It's challenging. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that you don't have that gap when you're going out for a company. It's your job. You're just doing your job. And so you feel comfortable doing it.
I think you hit up on a couple of very good points. And one is, if you grew up or if you have perception of salespeople as fill in the blank, like they're sleazy or they're whatever, they take advantage of you or whatever has been brought up to you, right? And now you're like that person. So if you have that, and the other one is the mindset related to money, your self-worth, and scarcity versus abundance. I think I would say from my personal journey, and I would love to hear your opinion as a professional focusing on sales, is in the beginning of the business, right? You just have to get revenue, right? It's a survival game. And yes, there is that financial pressure. And there is also that discomfort of like how you're being perceived, to other people going to say you're vulnerable, all of that. And over time, as your mindset grow, you come from a totally different place of, I want to help you and I've got what it takes to help you. And you know what? If we're a great fit, let's do it. But it comes from a perspective of abundance versus I'm desperate for the money because I have to drive revenues up.
Yeah, I have a saying that I provide for people. If you're in service, you're never nervous, right? When you're going out trying to get food to feed the babies, right? And that's the reason why you're out there making these sales. That feeling of desperation starts to hit you. At some level, inherently, you feel like you're asking for a handout, if that's the way you're going about it. If you're going out with you as the focus and you as the center, you feel selfish. But if you're in service and you're going out to try to find those people who need what you want, and you feel like you're on a mission, you have a vision for what you're doing, that vision helps to drive you. If you feel like this is a purposeful journey and you're going out to serve somebody and you focused on that persona and the individual you're trying to serve, not the group, not the community, not the nation, not the industry. You want to help Susan. You want to help Maria, and you want them to experience what you've learned, grown, built. If you're going out in that way, you have a little bit more drive. You've externalized it, and you don't feel as needy. Hard to do when you're starting up. You have this sort of love for your business.
Get there. Yeah.
Very hard, right? Some of it's just that imposter syndrome, right? You don't feel like you've done enough or you know enough. You're just starting out. How can I ask someone when I've only been in business for a week? How can I ask someone to pay me? I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. We never really know what we're doing, honestly.
That too, the lack of commitment. Yeah, totally spot on. And you do something when you shared your bio, something that you mentioned in there is that you work with individuals on their mental and emotional capacity. And you specifically noted the individual, which I think is very interesting, especially in the context of corporate sales, right? Because yes, you have the organization and you have the company culture, but you also have all of these individuals which make up the company. So let's talk whether it's in the context of a corporation or in the context of an entrepreneur. What is the importance of mental and emotional capacity? Because again, tell me if you agree with that. A lot of people are very mentally impacted when, revenues are not where they want them to be, where the economy is turning south and they hear the pressure of, things are about to go downhill and there's that pressure. And I'll tell you that it's a lot about mindset, but why is that important at an individual level to nourish your mental and emotional health?
Well, there's a misnomer about sales that people don't believe in. At some level, it's true. But when people talk about sales, they say it's what kind of game? What do they usually say? It's a what game?
What?
It's a numbers game, right? They always say numbers game, right? Yeah. People say that you just got to go out there and just kiss as many frogs as possible and turn it over. But the truth is that sales is really a people game. It's a relationship game. It's about connecting one person to another. And honestly, people don't buy what you say until they buy who's saying it. So in order to be effective as a salesperson, you have to show up with the right level of confidence and empathy in order for that person, the individual on the other side, to resonate with you. Now, in today's world, we're trying to really externalize that and push that out through marketing. Oh, I do social media, I make ads, I do events, I'm doing SEO, and they're going to go online and buy it. If they want it, they buy it. I'm not involved. I'm not asking them for money. People went and bought my product. But you're still communicating to a person through what you create. You're making a message. You're choosing words that are going to reflect either what you think you like about your product or what you know that person needs in order to make their lives better. And so if you take the person out of it, if you've got the wrong mindset, if you've got the wrong emotional state when you're creating whatever you're putting out there in the world, it's going to still come off as needy. It's going to come off as salesy. It's going to come off as derivative or cliche or just like what the other guy's doing. And anybody who's been burned by somebody that sounds like what you put out there is going to attribute that same thing to you. So ultimately, being successful as a seller is about getting yourself into the right headspace, about doing the work to show up with the right positive energy about what you're doing, the confidence in what you've created, and that empathy that you want to help somebody so that you can be effective. So that's why everything about getting sales right is about getting the mind and the emotions of the person in the right place before they start talking to people, or they're going to just try, fail, and adjust and wind up being just another salesperson. Well, we don't want that.
I can totally appreciate what you're saying. If you know me, and if you follow me on social media, I always talk about energy or vibes. And if your energy and vibes are not there, right? I mean, you will attract people. It's just, you will attract very different people than if your vibes are high, your energy is there, the confidence is there, right? You have that magnetic energy that people are like, I want more of that. And I was recently at a conference and we were talking about the impact of AI. And one of the things that I said is, especially if you're in a relationship-driven business, such as mine, like my business is very much relationship-driven, is people don't want to hear a robot. Like the reason you're going to pick to work with me or vice versa, the reason I'm going to pick to work with you is because I like you, I like your vibes, I like what you're saying. I trust you. I think you have credibility, because there's so many people who teach sales coaching, or there's so many people who teach like mindset or Pilates, or, with me, everything is long, yes, in the Angelova method, but it's still, if you don't like me, there is a very small chance you're going to buy anything from me.
That's the beauty of free market capitalism, right? You've got lots of options. There's always someone else doing that. If you've never read the book or understand the concept blue ocean, right? The people who are going to buy from you are going to buy from you. The people who become your customers will always going to be your customers. There's enough slices in the pie and people can just move on. So that's part of that mindset, to just know that you don't have to sell somebody. You don't have to convince somebody in front of you to buy, because if they don't buy, they want your customer. Your customers are out there. You can find them. And that's part of the mindset. And you're right. People don't want to buy from a robot. They don't want to buy from a salesperson. They want to buy from someone who's an expert in them that's offering help. Yeah. That's really what you want to show up as, no matter what you're doing. You want to show up as someone to listen. I know you, Maria. I know what you're going through. I've worked with other Pilates instructors, and I understand that you need X, Y, and Z, and I've helped others in the past. And believing that yourself, right? Knowing that, having that confidence is a big part of it. If you don't have that confidence, showing up with the humility to know that you don't, and just reaching out to them like, I'm trying to help you. I'd like to serve you. Can I ask you some questions about what you're doing? Can I understand you better to find out if I can help you? And even that is better than showing up as that robot. But you triggered something in my mind there that I think in terms of the mindset is very helpful. The idea of the robot, right? There's processes in your brain. You probably know this and teach things like this. There's a lot of things we do on automatic. There's a lot of other researchers out there who are talking about the way your mind works. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about those automatic mechanisms in your brain that just fire automatically. And there's robots acting in your brain today. They can be very destructive, or in the world of entrepreneurship in general, they can be very, very helpful. Here's what I mean. You don't want to show up as a robot. You certainly don't. But a lot of what hurts entrepreneurs in business in general, but especially around the work in business that needs to be done to drive revenue, making the outreaches, doing the cold calls, going to the conferences, networking, kissing all the frogs to find your prince, right? Those things are emotional. And when you're doing it without processes in place, without automatic triggers where you can do it without thinking, it's the thinking that makes it emotionally challenging. When you have to think about it, then you're going to feel about it. So one of the things I always teach is that you have to create processes that you string into systems that trigger automatic things for you to do. So it becomes as simple as getting up, brushing your teeth, a routine that you're doing unemotionally. I'm going to make these calls. I'm going to go to this conference. I'm going to do this at this time every day, every week, so that you can be robotic in the way you approach this very emotional, very personal work and just show up. Just showing up is half the battle. And most people are not showing up for the work that actually drives revenue, talking to people, writing well-crafted personal messages, creating better marketing from the heart because you know who you're talking to. If you put that on automatic, the robot can be very, very, very helpful. I probably teach things like that in your
That's
world.
Exactly right. Because that's what you're talking about is exactly the subconscious, and the subconscious fires up automatically. And most of us have no idea what's happening on automatic, right? Because it has happening our entire life. So it just keeps happening. Now, if that's something that's stopping you from making the outreach or from going to networking events or for connecting to people, I mean, Jason, the way we connected, right? I saw you in the room and I came and I introduced myself, right? For many people, that's a horrifying experience to go and have the confidence and say hello, right? And then we hit it off and then we did a one-on-one. Now I feel like I have a friend and a colleague, right? But that's the difference of developing a relationship and saying how can we collaborate versus, because I'll tell you, there are a lot of people who go to networking events and they sit in the corner and they're like, well, I hate networking. Networking is not just going there and just listening to the presentation and leaving the room. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become, with it. But that's exactly what you're talking about. You'll be intentional. I'm going to go to this networking event. And if meeting people is uncomfortable, I'm going to be intentional. We talked about intentional before we hopped on the recording, to meet one new person. That's it. Just one new person. And then the other big thing, which I'm sure you're going to jump on wagon with me, is follow up. Just because we met, if we don't follow up, that's going to fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, the things you talk about in that networking event, when you create those automatic processes that happen from triggers, sticking with networking, right? If you have planned, sat down and built rules for yourself that trigger automatic responses, then it's unemotional when you walk in and say, I'm going to find the sharpest dressed person in the room. I'm going to walk up and compliment their outfit. That's a trigger. It's an automatic process. It never fails. I'm going to find the tallest person in the room. I'm going to walk up and comment on their height. I'm going to find somebody who is completely different from me, who's got the most unique look, and ask them a question about how they're dressed. Or I'm going to walk up to the person who's got the best story, if I've had introductions, and comment on what they did just to start the conversation. You do that 10 times in the course of a networking event, you're going to make some connections. Same thing, you've got to have automatic things, whether you're tired, whether you're hungry, whether you get back at 1 a.m., you're going to come back, sit at your desk, and you know you have an automatic trigger. When I return from this networking event, I'm going to do my follow-ups. I'm going to plan. It's all about automatic processes that require no emotion, right? Because I heard it said from someone that all time management is pain management. We get distracted and grab some Netflix or some food instead of sitting down and doing our processes because we were triggered by something and we have some sort of emotional feeling we want to salve a little bit, right? We're going to eat something. We're going to watch TV. We're going to call a friend. All of those things. Same thing. If you walk in and you're tired, I feel tired. I don't want to do this. And your process falls apart. Now you're backed up. Now it adds stress. And now your entire week is going from that one decision you made not to do your follow-ups when you got home, not to do your bookkeeping. And you get to the end of the year and now you're, oh my God, I'm pulling out my hair and I have more work to do to catch up on all the bookkeeping in the back end that I should have done throughout the year. Because in that one moment, I felt a certain way. I had a feeling that caused me to not do the automatic process that would have set me up for success later. You gotta have.
I think the one important, it's something that made me think as you're speaking is, what are the things that we usually do not follow through? There are things that we do not like to do. There are the things that we're uncomfortable with. But those are the things that are usually the things that will move us forward, right? So you're right. We get so easily down the rabbit hole, right? Well, I shouldn't. And then we start making excuses. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I'm too whatever it is. And then guess what? It's been a month later. Now you're like, it's been too long. They probably don't remember me. And then the excuses just keep rolling in. And guess what? You might as well have not gone to that networking event because there's not much that came out of it. Hey Rebels, I want to take a quick moment to share something super exciting with you. If you've been feeling stuck, disconnected, or just know there is more to life than what you're experiencing, I have something special for you. I have created a powerful 6-step video series called Unleash Your Potential, an introduction to the Angelova Method. As a valued mind-body podcast listener, the series is my gift to you. In this series, I will guide you through the core elements of the Angelova Method, a unique approach that integrates movement, mindset, and mastery to help you align your body, mind, and life. You will learn practical techniques to improve your alignment, boost your core strength, and connect deeply to your inner self. Whether you're looking to enhance your physical health, gain mental clarity, or simply live more fully, these videos are designed to get you started on the path to your most vibrant self. And the best part? It's completely free. So if you're ready to break through barriers and unleash your full potential, head over to mindbodyexpert.com and get started today. Let's take this journey together, because you, my rebel, deserve nothing less than the extraordinary.
And you said something interesting there. You said, what are the things that don't fall through the cracks? It mentally takes me back to the start of this conversation. You ask about the differences between working in a large corporation and working for yourself. The things that never fall through the cracks are the things that your boss is asking you for, right?
Staying on top of your four, yes.
If you have a boss, if you have that external motivation, and again, our whole lives, we've been conditioned in the Western world to respond to external motivation, right? Top down, outside, somebody with authority telling you what to do. And in the world of sales, in the corporate world, the things that the salespeople do are largely generated and largely dictated by what the leadership cares about. What the leadership cares about drives what corporate salespeople do. And for most corporate sales team, those things are not in specific edicts or things that are said. It's a culture that has grown in that organization. Without the leader saying anything, that team has an ethos of, hey, listen, we're all about cold calling. That's the most important thing. And that's something that everybody just feels because the leader is really pushing that. Or, keeping things in the CRM. Something people hate to do. If information and accuracy of the quota and your pipeline and how you're reporting up the chain, if that's the number one thing, people are doing everything to make sure that their pipeline looks good. And that's what's driving it. It's a culture. And that's the way it's been happening. Problem is, for entrepreneurs, usually you're a culture of one or a culture of few.
You're right.
So it's hard to feel it,
You yourself and you.
Correct. And when I became my own boss, I found out that I'm simultaneously the worst employee or the worst boss I've ever had, right? It's the hardest thing in the world. How do you make yourself do something when you're the cause and the cure? It's maddening. And if you think about everything in that engineering system process, if you think about it as in, I am not doing work, but I am going in to build and perfect processes as a researcher to figure out what works the best. You as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur like myself, can start to ask the questions, what works best for me, right? You can start to analyze instead of saying, I need to get work and get results like you're in the corporate world. Okay, this is how I feel. Stepping back from yourself and saying, how did I approach this? What caused me to stumble in this moment and make a decision to not do something I was supposed to do? How can I correct that? If you're going in with the idea of externally analyzing yourself like you're the boss and you're trying to build processes that feel good for you and get results, that's going to give you the ability to build those habits, build those processes, so you create culture that you can move through that sets up automatics for yourself. Even if it's just setting reminders or alarms or having people as accountability partners from your network to keep you on track, that's how you build culture around yourself by yourself. But if you're leading a team in the corporate world, you got to build culture by design and not by default.
Yeah. So well said. And one thing that it's making me think is, well, two things that pop to mind is, I don't know if you have read the book, The Four Agreements. I preach that book all the time. But one of the agreements is be impeccable with your word. And the one thing I always add for clients is be impeccable with your word to yourself. Because to exactly the point that you make, we're so conditioned. I will make my boss happy, I'll make my friend happy, I'll make my whoever happy. But when it comes to making ourselves happy and staying true to what we said, I'm going to get up and work out. I'm too tired. It's raining outside. You let yourself go through, right? And then you start reinforcing habits which are not serving us. And then the other thing that you're talking about, I think, is alignment. Just because you're building your business this way, and this is working for you, I mean, you probably have some grand processes, right? But maybe your processes and maybe your approach to business is not working for me and as the person who I am, right? So it's very important to stay authentic to what feels true to you. Of course, being aware of your self-sabotaging patterns, right? And what you're talking about, Jason, is mindset. It's all about your mindset and awareness and those limiting beliefs that are holding you from taking the actions that you need to take to move you forward, right?
Absolutely. And again, the saboteurs you talk about, right? That create those limiting beliefs. That's there. But one of the things that I found personally, and when I talk to entrepreneurs, it's interesting when I pull that out of them. It's extremely emotional to talk to entrepreneurs who are trying to do the work. I work with the Russell Center for Entrepreneurship, and I talk to some of the entrepreneurs there. And we were in the class and we're having this conversation. I was doing the entrepreneur sales intensive and taking them through these processes. And one of the young ladies in the room was actually in tears, right? And people were just consoling her. She was not sobbing, but it just hit her so hard. Why can't I do this work? The challenge with a corporate environment versus yourself, by yourself. When you're in the room alone, you see everything, you know everything, and you're trapped in your head with you, the outside observer. And not so much the saboteurs, but those inner voices that have been put in your head. For me, it was military drill sergeants. For others, some disapproving parent or some loved one who doesn't really believe in you, but's depending on you, right? You can almost hear their voice in your head all the time. The moment you're making the decision, you feel it, and it's just working on you, and it's causing real things, not imagined false beliefs about yourself, but you're building these experiences that make you feel less about yourself, right? It feeds a real observed flaw in your consistency and your discipline that starts to work on your mind and feed the false narrative of you being unworthy of the fees that you're charging or the patronage of your customer base. So the mindset of grace and understanding and taking the time to read enough of the books like the Four Conversations, the Four Agreements, or any of the things that would help you understand that you need to have some grace with yourself and working on your inner work, self-care and self-improvement, self-building. It's the number one priority for me. And most people do not have any of that on their calendar. They do it. They'll get it in, but they're doing it haphazardly. They're not doing it with real operating rhythm where it's a sacred time on their calendar that they're going to make it
intentional
a day. Intentional. It's got to be, and it's got to be sacred, right? You got to tell your customers, your boss, your loved ones, I can't do this. I'm busy.
That's my time.
The most important thing. Yeah. And most people are not doing enough of that, right?
100%.
Even without professional help, you spend enough time with yourself with that grace and that understanding that you're intentionally trying to get yourself to a place where you're okay with who you are and accepting, truly accepting of you with all of your moles and scars and foibles and bad decisions, and start to work with yourself, either as the partner, that you wish you had, or the loving parent, not the drill sergeant, not the disapproving coach, not the boss. That's the only way you're going to be able to do this stuff in a way that's going to allow you to stick with it through the hard times, because everything about business and success and anything is consistency over a long period of time. Kung Fu is hard work over time to accomplish skill, right? So you got to apply that Kung Fu. And if you don't, you're not going to see the success. And you need that relationship with yourself to make that possible.
I love that, because all of that work and transformation, some people are like, what does self-care have to do with my professional success? And it's like everything. And I'm speaking from everything. It starts with you discovering who you are. It's you discovering who those voices belong to, because they certainly are not the truth. And then learning to silence those voices and stepping into your personal power with confidence and passion and serving, right? Which goes back to where we started. Jason, we can keep talking. Like, such a great conversation. I knew this was a great conversation.
You said that's something personal for you. Now, I've had several moments like that where I realized that it's my mental state and it's my mental health that is the thing holding me back, and having to take ownership of that. I don't know if there was a moment, any one moment like that for you, probably several, but anything stand out as that one time where you knew, like, this is where I need to focus on me. I realize now that this is why I either made a bad decision or wasn't successful, or I'm not where I want to be. Is there any time?
I think I shared this with you. I quit my job. I thought I was, my business is just going to flourish from day one. It didn't really go that exact way. Through a colleague, I found out about this mindset coaching. I really didn't know much about it, but I was like kind of desperate. Like, what do I do? Like, where do I go? Like, things are not working out. So I need something new and different. And I went, and like the coach, it was a big conference. As he was talking, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can hear things. But then I was like, but a lot of these people sound like they have like really a lot of luggage and drama. And I was like, I have a happy childhood. Like, But then there was something that I was like, there's stuff about me that I'm missing. And I remember I got up on the mic, Jason, and I asked the question. I was like, I resigned my job and like, why are things not going well? And I was like, now I have to make all of this uncomfortable decision. And the guy said like, well, you have to keep making those uncomfortable decisions. And I kid you not, I do wish I had a recording of that somewhere. I was like, but I don't want to make those uncomfortable decisions. Like I've made the one, right? So like, I'm done with uncomfortable decisions. And he goes, well, he's like, you have to get comfortable making uncomfortable decisions. And I was not happy with his answer. I was like, I don't know about that. Life has a way of teaching you and humbling you. And you know what I tell people is we have to turn that mirror and look into the mirror. And it's uncomfortable because we find out that, oops, I am here because guess what? The biggest person who is stopping me is not my spouse or my parents or society or this and that. It's the noise inside my head. And it's very important that you embrace that with grace and lovingness because, I had a client a couple of years ago and she said, Maria, how do I forgive myself? And it's a process. It's not an overnight thing, right?
Yeah, that forgiveness was hard for me because coming from the military, I had that drill sergeant attitude. You must do it. Everything was essential. Everything was have to. Everything was urgency. And that's another thing that challenges a lot of people, right? You've got all the time in the world. There's no one standing over you. No one's making you do that. And that's hard. And it was difficult for me to get around that. But similar to you, it was in the middle of a conversation with someone else. I was in Boise, Idaho, doing a training for, I wish I could remember the name of the corporation. But every now and then people ask deeper questions. You go off the beaten path, and we were just talking to a sales team about sales training. And I said a lot of the stuff that I just said here today. And I was saying all of that stuff and explaining it to them just academically. I never given it any thought. And my business is still not where I want it to be, but it was struggling at that time. I was off in another state getting paid to do something, but I knew I had to come back and pay bills. And this little check was just going to get me by. And I was like, why am I standing here telling people this stuff and I don't have this ready for myself? And I came back. The entire flight home was just this big emotional roller coaster of how am I going to fix myself, and started looking for therapy immediately after. That was just a few years back. It was 2021 perhaps. And starting this journey has been one of the most eye-opening things for me. It's when you have to tell someone else what they should be doing and you realize you're not. Yeah, that's that whole look to the log in your own eye before you look
and that's one thing I tell Jason is like, when I speak to people and clients, I am not speaking from having read a book and like you said, let me academically teach it to you. Like I have walked the journey. Like I am speaking the language. I've been there. I've done that. I realize it's scary. I realized your resistance, right? Let's work through that because that is the only way. Listen, you can push and you can drive yourself into the ground. And, most people define success as making money, which is great. I ask people is at what price are you successful? There is two ways to get to success, right? You can be abundant, you can be happy, you can be joyful, you can feel good and thrive in success, or you can be beaten down, exhausted, can't sleep, mind won't stop buzzing, you rush. You have everything that you want, but there's emptiness inside. So both, you can get two ways there. One is going to have detrimental impact on your health. The other one, your life experience is going to be a completely different experience.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that the more we start to bring this into context and to give people those tangible examples of how these, I don't like the word soft skills because they're not soft at all, but these intrapersonal skills, right? The intrapersonal skills, how they literally translate to the discipline that you need. You can't get it from the outside by just telling yourself, come on. You're going to have to go inside and work from the inside out to get that done. The more we have these conversations, the better it's going to be. And again, specifically in the sales world, that inner peace, that confidence, that vibe is going to be the difference. Your vibe will attract your tribe, or if it's not right, it will keep your tribe away. So getting yourself...
It's going to attract a tribe. You have a choice of what kind of tribe you attract, right?
Yes. So
Right, Jason, tell me, what is your definition of rebellious?
My definition of rebellious. Rebellious is not an action, it's a state of mind. It's not a behavior, it's a state of mind. When you refuse to think like the world wants you to, it's going to allow you to see differently and act differently.
Love that, Jason. I'm totally watching this and writing it down.
Yeah, rebellious is not an attitude, it's not an action, it's not a habit, it's a state of mind. And once you're rebellious, you're gonna think differently.
Perspective changes 100%. I love it. Jason, where can people find you? Social media, website?
The best way to follow me is through LinkedIn, where I put out most of my weekly content, just sharing with everybody every Monday and Friday to just give you a little bit of insights about what I'm doing. And if you feel as though I could be helpful for you, you can visit my website, CIGRIELLC.com, Sigri.com, or you can go to salessynergistics.com. That's 2 S's in the middle, salessynergistics.com, to look at the services I provide. We can give you a nice 30-minute conversation to find out whether or not it's worth working with me.
That's awesome, Jason. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the great, soulful conversation. I knew this was going to be a fun one, and you did deliver, my friend. So thank you for that, Rebels. Thank you for tuning in. You know what to do. Share, like. If you have any questions for Jason, certainly feel free to ask them. And of course, do make sure that you link with Jason. Thank you, Jason. Thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, do stay rebellious. Thank you for joining us on the Mind Body Podcast, where we explore the power of living authentically and rebelliously. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow rebellious soul who would love to hear what we share as much as you do. Stay strong, stay calm, and most importantly, stay rebellious. Until next time, rebellious souls, keep living fully. Your journey is just beginning.